Every minute counted when a child went missing, and Marcus Johnson knew this better than anyone. But as he sat in the police station watching detectives treat his daughter's disappearance like paperwork, he realized they had no idea they were wasting precious time with a federal agent. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and a comment before we start to learn more about what happened. Marcus Johnson's hands trembled as he pushed through the glass doors of the 12th precinct. His 8-year-old son, Jamal, had been missing for 3 hours. 3 precious hours that every law enforcement manual said were critical in child abduction cases. As an FBI special agent with 15 years of experience in violent crimes and missing persons, Marcus knew the statistics. He knew that 74% of children who are murdered are killed within the first 3 hours of their disappearance. He knew that every minute of delay exponentially decreased the chances of a safe recovery. But walking into his local police station as a panicked father instead of a federal agent, Marcus was about to discover just how differently the system treated desperate black parents. The desk sergeant barely looked up when Marcus approached. "Help you. My son is missing. I need to file a report immediately." Sergeant Collins glanced at Marcus, mid-30s black man in jeans and a t-shirt, clearly agitated. He'd seen this scenario before, and his assumptions were already forming. "How long has he been gone?" 3 hours. He was supposed to be at his friend's house, but never arrived. This isn't like him. Something's wrong. Collins sighed and pulled out a standard form. 8-year-old black kid missing in this neighborhood usually means the family's mixed up in something they shouldn't be. Marcus felt his blood pressure spike. "Excuse me? Look, I'm not trying to offend you, but we see this pattern. Kid disappears. Usually it's because dad owes money to the wrong people, or mom's boyfriend is into drugs. These kids get caught up in adult problems." The casual racism was breathtaking. Collins wasn't even trying to hide it. "Officer, my son is 8 years old. He's a straight-A student. This has nothing to do with drugs or debt or any other stereotype you want to apply to my family." Collins shrugged. "That's what they all say. But then we investigate and find out dad's got a gambling problem, or there's gang activity in the family. These kids don't just disappear for no reason." Marcus felt his professional training warring with his parental panic. "Officer, my son is 8 years old. He doesn't just wander off. He was walking 3 blocks from our house to his friends. Someone needs to start canvassing that route right now. Sir, before we start mobilizing resources, we need to make sure this isn't a family issue. You got any enemies? Anyone you might owe money to? Any business arrangements that might have gone bad?" The implications were crystal clear. Collins was assuming that a missing black child meant criminal activity in the family. "My son's disappearance has nothing to do with any business arrangements. He's 8 years old, and he's missing." Collins started the form reluctantly. "Child's name? Jamal Marcus Johnson, 8 years old, 4 feet 2 inches, 70 pounds. Last seen wearing a blue backpack and white sneakers." "And you are?" "Marcus Johnson. I'm his father." Collins wrote slowly, his pen dragging across the paper. "Mother's name?" "Sarah Johnson. She's at work. I've already called her." "Address where the child was last seen?" Marcus provided the information, watching Collins write each detail at a maddeningly slow pace. 3 hours and 15 minutes now. In FBI missing persons protocols, they should have had search teams deployed, media alerts issued, and federal resources activated. "Now, Mr. Johnson," Collins said, setting down his pen, "I need to ask some direct questions. You involved in any illegal activities? Drug dealing, gang stuff, anything that might make someone want to send you a message through your kid?" The question hit Marcus like a slap. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Look, I'm trying to help here, but 9 times out of 10 when a black kid goes missing in this area, it's payback for something the parents did. Dad's dealing drugs, mom's sleeping with the wrong guy, families not paying protection money. These kids become targets. Marcus stood up, barely containing his rage. My son is not a target of anything except your racist assumptions. He's a missing child who needs to be found, not a symbol of whatever stereotypes you have about black families. Collins leaned back, defensive. I'm not being racist, I'm being realistic. This neighborhood has problems. Black families have problems. And when kids disappear, there's usually a reason connected to those problems. Marcus felt his composure cracking. I told you I already called her. Sarah is at the hospital. She's a nurse. She's been in surgery for the last 4 hours. She didn't pick up Jamal. Hospital, huh? Collins made a note. Long shifts. Sometimes working parents lose track of schedules. Maybe Jamal went to a babysitter. Maybe he's with grandma. Every suggestion was another assumption, another stereotype about black families and absent parents and poor communication. Marcus had spent 15 years in law enforcement. He knew what a real missing child investigation looked like, and this wasn't it. Officer Collins, Marcus said, reading the name tag, I need you to understand something. My son has never been late without calling. He has never gone anywhere without permission. He was supposed to walk 3 blocks to Madison Street. That walk should have taken 8 minutes. It's been over 3 hours. Collins looked up from his paperwork with obvious irritation. Sir, I understand you're worried, but kids do this stuff all the time, especially kids from busy families. Parents working multiple jobs, kids learning to fend for themselves. Busy families. The euphemism hung in the air like smoke. I want to speak to a detective, Marcus said firmly. Detectives are handling serious cases right now. This is still just a missing person report. If your son doesn't turn up by tomorrow, we can escalate it then. Tomorrow? Marcus almost laughed at the absurdity. In FBI protocols, child abductions became federal cases after 24 hours. But by then, most children who were going to be found alive had already been recovered. The crucial window was the first 6 hours, and they were already halfway through it. I want to speak to a detective now. Collins sighed heavily. Let me see if Detective Morrison is available. Detective Morrison emerged from the back offices 20 minutes later. Mid-40s, white, tired-looking. He glanced at Marcus and the paperwork, and his first question confirmed Marcus's worst fears. Mr. Johnson? I understand your son is missing. Before we proceed, I need to ask, are you currently under investigation for anything? DEA? Local narcotics? Anything like that? Marcus felt his composure cracking. Detective, my son is missing. Why is your first assumption that I'm a criminal? Morrison sat down across from Marcus. Because in my experience, kids don't just disappear unless there's a reason. And with black families in this area, that reason is usually drugs, gangs, or debt. So I need to know what we're really dealing with here. What you're dealing with is a missing 8-year-old boy whose father is trying to get help from a police department that seems more interested in criminalizing him than finding his child. Morrison leaned forward. Look, Mr. Johnson, I get that you're upset, but I've been working this area for 12 years. I know how these cases usually play out. Your son probably got grabbed by someone sending you a message. So help me help you. What kind of business are you really in? The words hung in the air like poison. Marcus realized that no matter what he said, Morrison had already decided that Jamal's disappearance was connected to criminal activity by his black father. Detective Morrison, let me be very clear, Marcus said, his voice dangerously calm. I am a law-abiding citizen reporting my missing son. I am not involved in drugs, gangs, or any criminal activity. My son is not missing because of any message being sent to me. He is an 8-year-old boy who disappeared while walking to his friend's house. Morrison's expression didn't change. Mr. Johnson, I appreciate that you want to protect your family's reputation, but I need the truth here. In this neighborhood, kids don't just vanish. Your son was targeted for a reason. Now, are you going to help me figure out that reason, or do we do this the hard way? The hard way? The threat was barely concealed. The only reason my son might be in danger is because you're wasting time with racist assumptions instead of looking for him. Morrison stood up abruptly. Racist assumptions? Mr. Johnson, I'm trying to help you here, but if you're not going to cooperate with our investigation— Your investigation? Marcus interrupted. What investigation? You've spent 30 minutes trying to figure out what crimes I've committed instead of 1 minute looking for my missing child. 4 hours now. Marcus knew that if Jamal had been a white child from the suburbs, there would be patrol cars canvassing the neighborhood, Amber Alerts being prepared, search teams being organized. Instead, he was sitting in a police station being interrogated about his criminal connections while his son remained missing. Detective Morrison, I need you to understand something. My son has been missing for over 4 hours. Every minute you spend assuming I'm a criminal is a minute he could be getting farther away or in more danger. Morrison leaned back in his chair. And I need you to understand something, Mr. Johnson. In 12 years working this district, every single missing black child case I've handled has been connected to family criminal activity. Drugs, gangs, debt collectors. So forgive me if I don't believe your son just wandered off to play. The casual certainty in Morrison's voice was chilling. He wasn't even considering the possibility that Jamal was an innocent victim of a random crime or accident. In Morrison's worldview, black children only went missing when their families were involved in criminal activity. What if you're wrong? Marcus asked quietly. I'm not wrong, Morrison said confidently. These patterns are reliable. Your son didn't disappear randomly. Someone took him to send you a message, and until you tell me what that message is about, I can't help you get him back. What if this one doesn't resolve itself? Morrison's expression didn't change. Then we'll escalate appropriately. But right now, we're going to complete this report and wait for more information. Marcus stood up abruptly. I want to speak to your supervisor. My supervisor is going to ask you the same questions. What kind of criminal activity is your family involved in that would put your son at risk? Criminal activity. The assumption was now stated as fact. Detective, let me explain something to you, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a dangerously calm level. I know what a real missing persons investigation looks like. I know what should be happening right now. And what's happening right now is nothing. Morrison's eyes narrowed. Mr. Johnson, I understand you're upset, but don't come in here trying to tell us how to do our jobs. We handle these cases based on experience and statistics. Statistics that assume every black family is criminal. Statistics that show patterns. And the pattern here is clear. Your son was taken because of something you did or someone you owe. So instead of getting defensive about it, why don't you help us figure out who has a grudge against you? How many of those missing persons are 8-year-old boys? Look, I get it. Jamal's your son, so you think he's special. But kids go missing and turn up safe every single day. Your son is probably at some friend's house right now, playing video games and forgetting to check in. Marcus felt something snap inside his chest. 15 years of federal law enforcement training, hundreds of missing persons cases, joint task forces with local departments across the country, and he was being told that his son's disappearance was his fault for being involved in criminal activity he'd never committed. Detective Morrison, Marcus said quietly, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Something in his tone made Morrison pay attention. My name is Special Agent Marcus Johnson, FBI Violent Crimes Task Force. For the past 15 years, I have worked missing persons cases, child abductions, and violent crimes across 6 states. I have personally recovered 43 missing children. I know exactly what should be happening right now, and I know exactly what happens to children when precious time is wasted on racist assumptions. The color drained from Morrison's face. My 8-year-old son has been missing for 4 hours and 27 minutes. In FBI protocols, we would have had search teams deployed, media alerts issued, and every available resource working this case within the first hour. Instead, I've spent 4 hours being interrogated about my criminal connections while my son remains missing. Morrison opened his mouth, but Marcus wasn't finished. Every minute you've wasted assuming I'm a drug dealer or gang member is a minute Jamal could be getting farther from home. Every racist stereotype you've applied to my family is a decision that could cost my son his life. Morrison stood up quickly. Agent Johnson, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. Because you saw a black father reporting a missing child and assumed he was a criminal whose family problems had put his son in danger. You never once considered that it might be a real emergency being reported by a federal law enforcement officer. Morrison was already reaching for his radio. All units, we have a confirmed missing child, 8-year-old male, Jamal Johnson. Last seen at 1400 hours on Madison Street. Marcus listened to Morrison issue the alerts he should have issued 4 hours ago. Traffic cameras, witness canvassing, search teams, media notification. All the protocols Marcus knew by heart, finally being implemented because his FBI credentials had suddenly made Jamal's disappearance legitimate. Agent Johnson, Morrison said, holstering his radio, I apologize. We should have taken this more seriously from the beginning. Marcus looked at him coldly. Detective, my son has been missing for over 4 hours because you assumed a black father reporting a missing child must be involved in criminal activity. How do you think that makes me feel about your department's investigative capabilities? Morrison had no answer. I'm taking federal jurisdiction on this case, Marcus continued. My people will be here within the hour. I suggest you use that time to explain to your captain why a missing child case sat on a desk for 4 hours. Within 30 minutes, the 12th precinct was transformed. FBI agents, local search teams, media coordinators. The massive response that should have been deployed immediately was finally mobilizing, but Marcus couldn't stop thinking about those lost hours. At 6:47 p.m., they found Jamal. He was at a friend's house 6 blocks away. Not the friend he'd originally planned to visit, but another classmate who had invited him over after school. Jamal had tried to call home, but Marcus's phone had died during his frantic search of the neighborhood. He'd tried to call his mom at the hospital, but Sarah was still in surgery. Jamal was safe, unharmed, exactly where a child should be, playing with a friend and losing track of time. But Marcus knew that wasn't the point. The point was that for 4 critical hours, the police had dismissed a real missing child report because they saw a black father and assumed criminal activity instead of legitimate emergency. Detective Morrison approached Marcus as he hugged Jamal tightly. Agent Johnson, I'm glad he's safe. And I want you to know that we'll be reviewing our protocols for missing persons cases. Marcus looked at Morrison over his son's head. Detective, I've worked with dozens of police departments over the years. Most of them are professional, competent, and thorough. But today, I learned what it feels like to be on the other side of racist assumptions. To have my child's safety treated as less important because you assumed his black father must be a criminal. Morrison shifted uncomfortably. I hope you understand that we deal with a lot of cases where families are involved in situations. No, Marcus said firmly. What you deal with is unconscious racism that makes you assume black families are criminal until proven otherwise. Today, that racism could have cost my son his life if this had been a real abduction. Marcus stood up, still holding Jamal's hand. I'll be submitting a report to your captain about today's response time and protocols. Not as punishment, but as education. Because the next black parent who walks through these doors with a missing child deserves better than what I got. As Marcus walked out of the 12th precinct with Jamal safe beside him, he reflected on the day's events. He'd spent 15 years building relationships with local law enforcement, working as partners on federal cases, assuming that his badge and credentials gave him immunity from the biases that affected other black men. Today had taught him otherwise. Today had shown him that when he walked through those doors as a father instead of a federal agent, suddenly all his experience and expertise meant nothing compared to the racist assumption that black fathers reporting missing children must be criminals whose activities had put their children in danger. But it had also reminded him why his work mattered. Every missing child case he worked, every joint task force he led, every protocol he helped develop, all of it was about making sure that every parent, regardless of race or background, got the same urgent response when their child was in danger. Jamal squeezed his hand as they walked to their car. Daddy, why did those police officers keep asking if you were a bad guy? Marcus looked down at his son, safe and sound, and thought about how to explain that sometimes adults make assumptions about people based on the color of their skin instead of the content of their character. Sometimes, Jamal, people make mistakes about who we are before they get to know us. The case would become a teaching tool at the FBI Academy. Not as criticism of local law enforcement, but as an example of how racial bias could interfere with public safety. Because every minute mattered when a child was missing, and every racist assumption could be the difference between a family reunion and a tragedy.